Chazal taught us that once Shabbat begins, there is a prohibition, a rabbinic prohibition, to eat or drink anything until you make Kiddush. Why? There's a few reasons brought down, all have a similar undertone. The reason for this is because Chachamim wanted us that as soon as Shabbat began, to rush and fulfill the mitzvah midoraita, the biblical mitzvah of Zachor Tim Hashvat Kadasho, of remembering Shabbat. And we established earlier, how do you remember Shabbat? Through making Kiddush on Friday night on a cup of wine or grape juice. So therefore, Halacha explains that once Shabbat begins, Kevan Sheshaka Chama Be'erev Shabbat, and even if you accept Shabbat earlier, whenever you accept Shabbat, Asur miderabanan lit'om me'uma kolem HaKiddush. You can't taste anything miderabanan. Ve'afilu maim, and this includes even water. Nevertheless, Rav Ovadia Yosef makes a distinction. He makes a safek seveka that if it's still early on in the night and you're very thirsty, you're allowed to just drink water, only water, if you're very, very thirsty. Why? Because maybe halachas like Rabbeinu Tam that Shabbat begins a little later, and if not, maybe it's like Rabbi Yosef that says the Tzedek Kochavim, his opinion is not, we hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe it's like Rabbi Yosef, who Rabbi Yehuda explains that you have that whole Ben Hashmashot. Rabbi Yosef says, no, it's only at the end, Keref Ayin, and at the last moment of the Ben Hashmashot is when Shabbat actually begins, and that whole period before that is considered daytime. So for that reason, Rav Ovadia Yosef makes a distinction that water, if you're very thirsty, in the first, let's say half an hour after Shabbat begins, would be like after sunset, even less, 15 minutes after sunset begins, would be allowed to consume water if you are very, very thirsty. Now this also applies. Rak imad lo hitpalel arvit shel Shabbat, aval im kvar hitpalel arvit shel Shabbat, afilu mibod yom asur lit'om bishum panim ad sheikadesh. Now the applies that, let's say in the summer season, whenever we accept Shabbat earlier as a congregation, we pray Arvit early. Even then, the sun didn't set yet. It's still daylight outside. Halacha would still say that because you said Arvit and you accepted Shabbat, you can no longer eat or drink anything until you make Kiddush. And this also applies for the Kiddush of Yamim Tovim. If there's a Yom Tov, ideally you want to rush home and make Kiddush before eating anything else, except, as we said, water is the exception that Rav Ovadia makes. But other than that, one should be zariz, they should be excited, they should rush after tefillah on Friday night to make Kiddush on wine to fulfill the mitzvah of Zachor Tim Hashvat Kadasho. Have a wonderful day and Shabbat Shalom.